честью и гордостью нести высокое звание юноармейца. Клянусь, клянусь, клянусь!
Raising a child in modern Russia can be pretty scary. Quite some time ago on this channel I already talked about Russia's new mandatory propaganda lessons in school, where they brainwash Russian children about the importance of Russia's war in Ukraine. They teach children that Russia has never done anything wrong in its entire history, and also they lecture children as young as 8 years old about how important it is to be a patriot and also to be able to give your life to the motherland in case it needs it. The happiness of the motherland is worth more than a life. It's not scary to die for your motherland. To love one's motherland is to serve one's motherland. Sounds like a very normal country, am I right? And just in case you guys think this is normal and it's not bad enough, in today's video we're going to be talking about something that is a lot worse. And that is the brainwashing military institution known as Russia's Young Army Movement, which is a movement for children from the ages of 8 to 16 that is meant to create future soldiers for Russia. Now before we talk about any obvious historical parallels here, and before I say anything, let's check out what they're saying about themselves. Here I'm actually on the website of Yunarmia, this young army movement, which describes itself as an all-Russian, youth-oriented, military patriotic social movement that is reviving the great traditions of youth organizations. I think it should say of the USSR here, but it doesn't for some reason. And they even have a video.
Чтить память героев, сражавшихся за свободу и независимость нашей Родины. Быть патриотом и достойным гражданином России. С честью и гордостью нести высокое звание юноармейца. Клянусь, клянусь, клянусь!
Движению юнармия.
My fucking god. What do I even have to say, guys? I just don't think this is normal. Children shouldn't be doing this.
Движению юнармия уже 8 лет. Во всех 89 регионах России более 1 миллиона 700 тысяч юнармейцев. И все они объединены общей целью – заботиться о старшем поколении, поддерживать младших товарищей, изучать и чтить богатую историю России. Юнармия ежедневно принимает активное участие в мероприятиях по сохранению ратных традиций российского воинства и патриотического воспитания молодежи.
So yeah, on this video on their website, they're kind of trying to show and paint the organization as sort of in a more of a wholesome light, essentially.
В 2023 году движение стало инициатором масштабной патриотической акции «Верни герою имя», в рамках которой обеспечен уход за воинскими захоронениями, обелисками и мемориалами.
So a lot of the video here actually focuses on how the youth that partakes in this organization is like focused on keeping the wholesome memory of the defenders of Russia and the Soviet Union that fought against the Nazis in World War II, right?
День Великой Победы – особенный праздник для каждого из нас. Отвага и мужество героев вдохновляют молодое поколение России на новые свершения. Ежегодно юнармейцы в составе парадных расчетов проходят по главным улицам своих городов, чтобы отдать дань памяти и уважения подвигу героев.
So yes, they're showing like the most wholesome sides of this organization, with them like meeting with World War II veterans and so on, and like singing songs commemorating the war for the veterans and so on, right? Although all of it is sick and twisted, by the way, because the whole point here is to say that the victory in World War II and the fight against Nazi Germany in World War II is the same fight that Russia is currently having against the Ukrainian Nazis. So they're basically using the memory of World War II for something very sinister here, to promote the war that's currently happening.
С первых дней специальной военной операции движение Юнармия стало инициатором проектов и акций по поддержке военнослужащих, которые принимают участие в специальной военной операции и проходят лечение в военных госпиталях.
It's so crazy to me that at this point this has pretty much become normalized right here. Like all of this, seeing children in the setting of like drawing little postcards to like the heroes of the special military operation. It's happening so often now that this is now normalized in Russia, right? And I just do not think that this right here is particularly normal.
Сегодня история ратных подвигов России пополняется новыми героями, участниками специальной военной операции, которые приумножают славу наших предков. Ваш героический подвиг служит примером подлинного служения своему Отечеству. С праздником вас! С Днем Героев Отечества!
Yikes. So, yeah, even though Yunarmia, the Russian youth army, tries to portray itself as a kind of a wholesome organization that just wants to remember what happened in World War II, the reality is much darker. The Russian Young Army movement was started in 2016 with the direct involvement of the Russian Army, the Russian Ministry of Defense, and the Russian Ministry of Education, with the explicit goal of brainwashing Russian children into militarism, mobilizing them, and preparing them to be future soldiers that are going to die in the war. And I'm not coming up with this because they admitted themselves. Here a Russian soldier who is also chief of staff of the youth army is boasting about how 11,000 people that came out of the youth army are actually currently in the zone of the special military operation.
Большие заслуги выполненных задач в виде более 700 орденов мужества. На сегодняшний день у нас в рядах движения 5 героев России. К сожалению, самый младший герой России по истории, всей истории специальной военной операции, это Илья Каркавин. Ему было 19 лет, когда при выполнении задач, героических выполнении задач, он отдал жизнь.
So yes, once again, you heard me correct. 11,000 children, pretty much, they were children just yesterday, who were in the Russian youth army, are already taking part in the Ukraine war. So in the end, I don't think this organization is as peaceful and wholesome as they claim it is. So hey there people, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in today's video, we're gonna be talking about the great Putin Jugend organization known as Russian Young Army. We'll talk about how truly insane it is and also react to a BBC documentary on the topic. Now before we get into it, I actually wanted to tell you guys something pretty important. Some of you guys might remember this Gopnik plush toy that I released a while back. A lot of people really liked it, but now it is time for something new, because I am about to release the Babushka plushie in collaboration with Makeship. It's a plush toy that is based on a legendary character of the Eastern European grandma known as Babushka. I actually came up with the design for this myself, and then the people at Makeship turned it into real life. I wanted this Babushka toy to be kind of a reminder of something nice and wholesome. So if you guys want to get yourself or somebody you love a cool Eastern European souvenir, these will be available on the Makeship website starting with October 15th and are only going to be available for a limited time. So yes, the Babushka plushie comes out on October 15th. Go to the link in the description, mark the date, get yourself one of these bad boys, and also if you do, you support my channel. Now guys, let's get back to something less wholesome. The Russian Youth Army. So yeah, I think by now we've established and it's clear now that this organization exists solely to lure young people and school children in Russia to take part in wars. Here on the website of Yunarmia, you can see that they're boasting about how there's almost 2 million members of this movement, aka there are 2 million children that they've indoctrinated. You can see a great picture of Vladimir Putin right here with some children dressed in uniforms. There's a button right here which actually you can click and you can apparently try and sign up for it. You see they make it look nice for the youth, it's an iPhone. And they even have several branches right here. For example, they have youth aviation right here, which is aimed at, you know, luring Russian children into becoming part of the Air Force, basically. Then you have the youth navy, which is obviously about luring children into the navy. There's also youth tech, which I guess, you know, teaches your Russian kids how to become Kremlin hackers and hack elections in the future, I guess so. And by far my favorite right here is actually youth correspondence, which teaches young kids how to be war correspondents and also how to be journalists and how to cover the most important patriotic events. So they also have a Z journalist department in which they're pretty much preparing young children to be future war propagandists and future pundits that are going to whitewash anything that Russia does in the future. Amazing. Now I know that some base conservative people in the comments are probably already saying, oh yeah, better this, patriotism and guns, instead of being indoctrinated into trans LGBT ideals. I guess so, except that it didn't take me a very long time to find some very sus things about the youth army on Russian media, Russian governmental media. Here, for example, in 2019, the chief of staff of the Magadan branch of the youth army of Russia was fired after being accused of sexually assaulting a schoolgirl. Or here's, for example, another story from 2019 from Moscow in which another chief of staff of a regional rural Moscow youth army branch, who you can see right here, you know, was teaching kids how to fire guns and so on. He was also arrested for sexually assaulting and trying to solicit sex from minors. So yeah guys, what can I say? The Russian youth army is just great. Not only can they teach your kid how to fire and disassemble a Kalashnikov rifle, but also your kid can get molested. These are just the famous traditional values of Russia, you guys. Surely giving people with PTSD access to children is a great idea. Cry about it, liberals. And yet at the same time, right, while all of this is going on, the Putin supporting Z Russians will still worry way more about like the indoctrination that is going on in the West, where they teach every single kid to be trans and gay or whatever, right?
У них 85 полов вместо мужского и женского. У них публичные дома для зоофилов. Они узаконили педофилию. Они теперь в стадии рассмотрения закон о признании нормы инцеста. Ребенок, например, в ЕС в 3 года должен выбрать себе пол. Если ребенок себе пол в 3 года не выберет, значит ребенка из семьи ювенальная юстиция изымает и отдает их в семьи гомосексуалистов.
Yeah, guys, I mean, I cannot believe you Westerners are putting up with your children being brainwashed like this. But yeah, a lot of Z Russians genuinely think that this is what's happening in Europe, and at the same time, they don't care whatsoever about the indoctrination that is happening in Russia. Now actually guys, to tell you a little bit more about this youth army, I actually wanted to watch and react to this one documentary here that BBC News has created recently about this Putin Jugend organization essentially, and I think there's a lot of stuff in there that is quite revealing.
Мы уверены, мы убеждены, что мы взрослые. Сегодня, когда над нами опять вновь фашизм, мы победим. Но главное впереди. Вот эту победу удержать, и поэтому право и возможность будет именно у вас. И то, что вы сегодня здесь, вместе с нами, это здорово.
Wow guys, what a woke Russian soldier. He's talking about the looming threat of fascism that is over Russia. He's clearly gotta be talking about the militarization and the xenophobia and so on that is rampant in society right now, right? He's definitely talking about the Russian government and Vladimir Putin, right? No guys, he's not. He's talking about fighting the Nazis in Ukraine, obviously. Because there is zero fascism in Russia. Absolutely zero, guys, of course, yes.
Давайте следующее тогда, значит, по планам. Пиши, черкани. Значит, первично у нас сейчас будет много всего. Сейчас будет первый этап, это спартакиада юноармейского марафона на Кубок мэра города.
Раз она структурирована, то есть Москва, главный штаб, региональный штаб, муниципальный штаб и юноармейские отряды в каждой школе.
Помогайте девочкам.
It just feels like, блять, я не знаю, у меня реакторка не работает нахуй. Sorry guys, it's just actually difficult to like come up with funny shit and jokes right now and try to be entertaining for you guys while watching this. It's fucking horrible. It's just not normal, once again. But essentially, yes, at the start of this documentary, we meet a decorated soldier who's like one of the organizers and managers for the local headquarters of the youth army in the Russian city of Vologda. And he's got a lot of interesting thoughts here, actually.
Ну, задается очень много вопросов вообще от взрослых, что почему вы военизируете детей наших, да, там вот с автоматы разбираете, учите там...
Absolutely fair questions, yes.
Стрелять их, строевую подготовку там делаете и так далее. Приходится объяснять, но это правильно. И это и дисциплина, порядок, это патриотизм.
Those are his reasons, by the way, yes. Because it's the right thing to do, because it's order, and because it's patriotic. No more questions needed.
В этом году открыли памятник сотрудникам органов государственной безопасности. Вот. В нем я сына своего вижу. В СВО сын погиб, был он сотрудником ФСБ.
This is Russia, man. This is Russia. Like, what the f— So this guy is like, once again, a soldier, a veteran of the Russian armed forces or whatever. He chose for his son to have the exact same career as him. He probably brainwashed his son really hard so that he can become a soldier. And now his son is dead after taking part in the Ukraine war. So like, right now what this guy is essentially doing, right, is that he hasn't learned a single lesson. He's essentially brainwashing a new generation of children and trying to create more dead soldiers for Russia, essentially, right? So this is what's happening here. It is just fucking sick. And again, I think it's pretty obvious that if you ask this guy about who's responsible for what happened to his son, he's definitely not gonna say that it's our country that's responsible for it, that it's sending kids into the meat grinder, right? It is definitely not him who's responsible, who, you know, indoctrinated and brainwashed his son for years into becoming a soldier. No, it's definitely none of that. It's the Ukrainian Nazis. They are the ones responsible. Now here, essentially, after this, it shows a scene of, it introduces another character here who's called Dima. He's a young 16-year-old guy who, as far as I understand, lives in like he lives in an orphanage, and his mom apparently was in prison or something. He has no father, no parents, and you know, people like this essentially are prime recruitment material for these slimy organizations like the Youth Army or whatever, right? Dima has attended Youth Army events but is not a member yet, and he's actually like the best character in this entire documentary because he has a passion for dancing or whatever, and spoiler alerts, he's actually going to choose to not join the Youth Army at the end of the video, so good for him. But some other children in this video have already been indoctrinated pretty hard.
Я в будущем как бы получу диплом юриста, но все равно пойду дальше получать высшее образование по специальности военный корреспондент. За всю историю России у нас она не воевала всего 300 лет. То есть все равно какие-то боевые конфликты у нас будут.
С кем?
Ну, возможно, и с Западом. Вот США, они никогда не успокаиваются, поэтому вот сейчас начинаются на Израиле боевые конфликты, то есть все равно что-то будет.
This is so fucking insane, man. It's like, I don't think it's a normal country when you have a 15-year-old girl who wants to become a war correspondent, okay? That's her biggest dream. And by the way, she's completely sure that she's gonna be a war correspondent because even if right now she's a minor and she cannot join the army yet, she is sure that Russia will have some kind of war in the future that she could take part in as a war correspondent, because of course, I guess it's a given that Russia will always have wars, yes? I mean, it's just fucking insane. If we care so much about the people who died in the Second World War, aren't we like supposed to talk about how there should be no more wars and stuff? I understand maybe it's like a realistic outlook on the world, but to say that Russia is always going to be at war with somebody and that there's always going to be enemies that we need to defend Russia from, it's fucking insane. That's just insane, like paranoid Z propaganda thinking. And also love how Russia has never started any wars, but at the same time Russia is always at war with somebody. Make it make sense, please. And again, I'm not trying to attack the child, I'm trying to attack the idea. The children are not responsible for being brainwashed.
Получается, в 5 классе в лицее услышала про такое движение «Юная армия». И узнала, что за стеной есть такой кружок журналистики. Это мне просто с первого занятия понравилось. У меня такая мечта появилась — быть в президентском пуле. Работать с президентом — вот такая работа.
А президент тот же самый будет?
Конечно.
Мы другого не хотим.
Да.
У меня есть друг.
So yes, guys, I mean, we are fucking cooked, what can I say? Once again, this is something that I mentioned earlier in this video. This is an example of this youth army creating future propaganda pundits for Russia. Again, this child already wants to be part of the Kremlin pool of journalists, and to essentially spread Russian propaganda and to closely work with the Kremlin. The dream is not to be a journalist that talks about important things in society and like goes against power sometimes and brings up, you know, important issues. No, the dream is to be a dog of the regime. And I cannot believe that young people are thinking like this. So yeah, here they have like a ceremony commemorating the start of the Second World War once again, and here it says, after the ceremony, Dima and his youth army classmates will set off on a riverboat cruise. For Dima and thousands of other children, the youth army is a chance to have a holiday away. So yeah, the youth army sometimes also takes kids on trips, and this right here, by the way, is just a complete rip-off of the Young Pioneers movement of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union. Basically, in the Soviet Union, in every single school, you can become part of this sort of communist youth organization called the Pioneers, and essentially you were given like a special outfit as well. You were also given a red hat, which the uniform of this youth army of Russia is completely copying, by the way. And yeah, the Pioneers will be basically doing kind of the same stuff that these kids are doing now. They will be taught about patriotism, they will be taught about the greatness of Lenin and his, you know, work. They sang patriotic songs, they marched together and so on. You know, pretty much most Soviet kids actually went through this. My parents told me about how they were in the pioneer movement growing up in school. And once again, just like this youth army, the pioneer movement would also take kids on trips. And in the Soviet Union, if you actually excelled somehow at being part of this Young Pioneers movement, you would actually get a ticket to go to this youth camp called Artek. And it was like basically the biggest dream of every Soviet kid because nobody could ever afford any vacations. So this was like the only option for a lot of Soviet kids to go on a trip. And guys, the youth army of Russia right now is actually using the exact same places that the young pioneers movement used to essentially continue this bullshit. Like Artek, for example, the most famous youth camp of the Soviet times, is actually currently occupied basically by the young army of Russia, and they're using it, you know, for their events. It's essentially their camp. And there's other ones like Arlyonak, for example, which is yet another old school Soviet youth camp that has pretty much been repurposed for the needs of this, you know, young army. And yeah, since a lot of these kids come from pretty poor backgrounds, once again, taking part in this army thing is like the only way for them to actually, once again, take a trip. Because it's not something that they or their family can afford otherwise.
У нас наставник, он учил ребят патриотизму, как любить родину, что делать, военному образованию. Он говорит, я их учил этому, а сейчас они воюют. И говорит, как я смогу остаться здесь один в школе, когда мои ребята, которых я учил, воюют там. Ну вот он ушел. Он был очень хороший человек.
I'm sorry for laughing, guys. I'm not laughing at the death, although, I mean, again, it's fucking insane. Like, Russia is basically a death cult. Like, how is that supposed to be an inspiring story for anybody? But I actually laughed at this kid right here who has a t-shirt that says Fighter of KFC on it instead of UFC. Basically saying that he likes fried chicken more than fighting. Even Russian soldier kids like KFC, you guys.
В детских учебниках штатов Америки у них прописывается, что Америка победила в войне 41-го года, что американцы внесли ключевой вклад, что американцы сделали намного больше, чем Советский Союз. Дети помнят свою историю, дети должны ее знать. Кем был их дед, кем был их прадед, что он делал. И в юнармии дается это образование. И если у нас ребята по 8 лет умеют собирать и разбирать автомат, это не значит, что у нас все так плохо в рядах Российской Федерации. Это значит, что наше подрастающее поколение еще ох как задаст этим американцам. Все у нас.
Nah, bro. Yeah, I mean, he said it all, right? I mean, this right here is pretty much the exact ideology that they're feeding kids in these youth camps, in these events. Instead of just celebrating the memory of the Second World War, which of course I believe was very important for the Russian people, for the Soviet people, right? Instead of appreciating the input of all countries into defeating Hitler, we have to turn it into a big dick measuring competition, right? Where we figure out who did the most, and also we're really offended at the Americans for considering that, you know, they were the ones who really did it, even though, like, Americans think about World War II way less than Russians do. And since Americans do not respect our input into the Second World War, then we have to create a whole generation of Russian kids that will fight back and destroy America one day. Like, this is just fucking insane. Like, just 10 years ago, this was like a fringe viewpoint that only, like, boomers had. But now they're teaching this shit to kids, and I do not really see this ending well, to be quite honest.
Всегда пытаются уничтожить Россию, потому что сильный соперник, потому что Россия никогда не вводила в войны первыми. Внутри нас патриотизм! Много говорят про специальную военную операцию. Война, она всегда будет приносить, она всегда будет расти, она всегда будет приносить убытки. И разрушенные города – это лишь последствия, которые несет любая война.
That's a beautiful shot right there. But yeah, I mean, it's a child who's just like saying things, who's just literally reciting like, he's just reciting propaganda tropes that have been put into his head. And I don't know, man. I don't know if I can watch this anymore, to be quite honest. But I do want to show you the very end. Of course. Yes, guys. Of course, there has to be a child that performs the song by the Russian propaganda singer SHAMAN, the legendary song Ya Ruski. This is just the co-worker music of Russia, you know, what can you do? Again, to us it's just a shitty, cringy song, but to these kids it's like a song that they actually love and that they identify with. And also lines such as these. These lyrics that we laugh at, right, that we think are ridiculous, to these children, they're gospel. And that's fucking terrifying. But I do want to end this video on a positive note.
Скажи, пожалуйста, а ты теперь будешь ходить в юнармию
Не знаю. Не вижу какого-то смысла определенного. Ну и на армии у меня времени не будет. Учеба, работа, танцы. Все.
Понимаешь, у каждого человека есть время на то, чем он хочет заниматься, правильно?
Я хочу танцами заниматься.
So yeah, at least something wholesome to end this goddamn fucking video that just made me so depressed right now. Shoutouts to Dima for not deciding to join the young army. He's a bright young lad for that and he definitely has made the right decision. Dancing is hell of a lot better than riding in the trench. And the only thing I can really say is that I hope more kids in Russia make the same decision. Because it is not normal for a 16-year-old to choose death over life. But yeah guys, I guess that is going to be pretty much it for today's video though. I wanted to show you guys what is going on in Russia right now with the Russian youth. Talk a little bit about this young guard movements and just how truly cooked the Russian youth is. If you guys did enjoy this video though, as always, please make sure to slap the like button on it, and as always, if you guys would like to support me additionally, and that is financially, then go over to the link down in the description and buy me a coffee or become a YouTube channel member. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.